Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the online service of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, inclusive, and spirited congregation. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Joseph Bednarik. I have been a member here at QUUF since the late 1990s, and I'd like to begin this service with an acknowledgement that the land, water, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and the Chemakum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors, and we vow to help restore and sustain the homelands and home waters. In a moment, we will be lighting our chalice, but first let us settle our minds and prepare our hearts for this hour together by the ringing of the chime. It's very good to be together with each other this morning. Our call to community this morning is Now I Recall My Childhood, with Sheila Harwood on the piano, accompanying the QUUF Quintet. Sometimes it's hard to say a word. Shara Gustner, Al Thompson, Doug and Pat Rodgers, and Jess Schumacher. Thank you, musicians. That was beautiful. We really appreciate it. And now we're going to light our chalice on this Solstice and Father's Day Sunday with our pulpit assistant, Joyce Francis, assisting as we bring our attention to these words by Simone Weil. Love is not a consolation, it is light. I love those words. Love is not a consolation, it is light. Our opening words this morning are going to try to connect light and love together. On this Father's Day, our opening words are from a great American poet named Dan Gerber. Some of us here this morning might remember that Dan has visited us here at QUUF a couple of times to deliver talks and poetry readings and sermons on the art of poetry and on the practice of paying attention. This is the conclusion of Dan's poem called Postscript. It's about his father. Among people, I think of my father telling me the hour before he died, how he thought of all the men and women he'd loved, and how he wished he'd told them when he could have. And on this summer solstice Father's Day Sunday with so much light in the air, let us call forth even more light by telling someone, especially someone who may need to hear those words, that we love them. Let's do this before it's too late.
Good morning. Speaking of love, we love newcomers. What we'd like to do now is acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. You are invited to say hello in the comment section and tell us your name and where you're from. The chat section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it's not in full screen, and we'd love to hear from you. We also hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour in our Fellowship Hall Zoom room. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat section at the end of the service. And if you find this service useful or inspirational, and we certainly hope both, please share the link with your friends and family. So welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here with us today. And we will now gratefully receive your offering. Today, our collection will go towards the building, program, and staffing costs of this fellowship, QUUF. If you'd like to donate, you have 3 options. First, text the amount you would like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of your screen. Go to our website, QUUF, and click on the giving link, or lastly, simply mail a check to QUUF, remembering to put QUUF in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Sheila Harwood play The Solid Rock. Sheila? Thank you, Sheila. That was lovely. I have one important announcement today. The local Quaker community is extending an open invitation to congregants of QUUF to join in a vigil at the Navy Weapons Transfer Depot on Indian Island today from noon to 4. The invitation is to share silence and deep listening, bring food, something to sit on, and reflect on how the cost of military spending in our country impacts our ability to provide health care, create adequate housing, repair critical infrastructure, and grapple with global warming. We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone thinking in particular of this longest day and the many blessings that light provides. And now, within the congregation, we light a candle of joy and gratitude for our Director of Family Ministry, Bo Olquin. He donated his kidney this Wednesday, June 16th, and for Bo's recipient, all that is known of this recipient is that they are currently in Arizona. And Bo wishes that they are recovering well and perhaps have a new lease on life. Bo's mother, Robin, is in town to help with his recovery this month, and he is overjoyed to see her for the first time in 22 months. We're thinking of you, Bo. We light a candle of sorrow for QUUF friend Thomas Edward Booth, who died peacefully at home of colon cancer on May 23rd, with his wife Carol Long at his side. Many of Tom's friends joined him in the last days to share food, songs, and stories. He was 71 years old. Tom was a happy and authentic man who tried to make the world a better place through his art and activism. Some of you will remember him as one of the activists who went to Standing Rock. People loved Tom's political sculptures at his North Beach studio and more recently on the corner of Pierce and Lincoln Street near Carol's uptown home. Tom will be sorely missed. No memorial service is planned at this time. We note that Sally Davis created this morning's flower bouquet in honor of David Bach, son of Carl Bach. We light this candle to honor the life and memory of David. We have 5 birthdays to celebrate, and I think we'll keep it to one candle for all 5. Cher DeWeese and Susan Britton on June 9th. Frank McNabb on June 11th. Marge Euro, June 13th. And Colleen Johnson, our president, on June 14th. And now we place our final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows amongst us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
So this morning's sermon is about blessings. So the reading this morning is going to be about blessings from the American poet Lucille Clifton, her magnificent poem called Blessing the Boats. May the tide that is entering even now the lip of our understanding carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever. And may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. Our special music today is the Wild Rose Chorale singing I'll Be Seeing You with photos by Ida Domazlicki. Thanks. And speaking of blessings, it is always a blessing to hear beautiful music, so thank you very much. That was gorgeous. The title of this sermon is The Carborundum Blessing, and I am fairly confident that the word carborundum has never been used in a sermon, as in ever. in any denomination. So we've got that going for us this morning. So June is the traditional month for wedding ceremonies, and please allow me to share something with you right from the start. I love weddings. I love weddings because at their best, for me, they inspire deep feelings of love and commitment, promise and hope, and I get to revisit my own vows and my blessings. And please note that qualifier, for me, because I'm locating the feeling right here, my heart, and I get it, that for some people, weddings are messy and perhaps cynical events, that they're shaky prologue for that 50-50 dice roll toward divorce, perhaps bitter divorce and broken dreams. I get it. I have watched close friends mercilessly grind through the end of marriages with lawyers and courts and divisions of families into camps, those transformations of that bright love light into dark and smoldering hatred. I get it. It is not a pretty sight, and I do not wish it onto anyone. And the statistics indicate that many, many people in this virtual sanctuary this morning have slogged and suffered through the ends of marriages and may be justifiably cynical regarding weddings. So for those people who are gathered here this morning who have suffered pain as the result of marriage and divorce, I beg your patience, and I hope that what follows might serve as some sort of counterweight, or at least that you might find some amusement in my sentimental optimism. Because as I said, I love weddings. Over the past dozen weddings that I've attended, I have cried at each and every one. Each and every one. I have officiated at numerous weddings, and I have felt deep emotions at each and every one. And come to think of it, I probably cried at each and every one. Now, for me, there is something holy, there's something sacred about the exchange of vows that are rooted in love. I have done it once in my life, and it was a profound event. And so let me set you the stage. Almost 30 years ago, this coming September, I stood at the edge of a second growth forest in Oregon, and I exchanged wedding vows with the person whom I loved. We did this in the presence of about 100 people, our community of family and friends. And we asked that they take their roles very seriously, their roles as witnesses very seriously. Because not only in that moment were they there to watch an event, they were there to be our support in the years and the decades that would unfold. Everyone gathered agreed, including these three blood relatives. My aunt, who was not yet 50, and she was actively dying of cancer. She would be dead within 2 years. She lived near Chicago, and coming to the wedding in the Pacific Northwest with her husband of many, many years, that activity was on her bucket list, and her bucket was getting smaller and smaller by the day. So no matter how inconvenient, no matter how painful her disease was, she would not miss her eldest nephew's wedding. Her head was wrapped in a colorful scarf to protect her bald head from the very, very hot Oregon sun. And there she was. Another person, who will remain anonymous for obvious reasons, was in the grips of active alcoholism. Everyone could see it, except for themselves. Welcome to the symptom called denial. Now, knowing this person would be attending our wedding, we were very skittish about serving any kind of alcohol at the dinner or the reception, but we decided to do so. We provided beer and wine in reasonable quantities, And those of you who have experienced intimate contact with alcoholism, you know that the phrase reasonable quantities is laughable. Word got out before the wedding that there wouldn't be a lot offered. So people smuggled stuff in, even the hard stuff. And of course, true to the disease, the person got roaring drunk around the campfire that night, had a blast, absolute life of the party, playing guitar, singing songs, telling stories and jokes, though they have no memory of the fun that they created that night. And finally, one of the married couples present, again, blood relatives, were beginning the agonizing process of splitting up after 25 years of a successful and loving marriage. There had been an infidelity that created a rupture that simply could not be healed. So imagine being present for the wedding of your closest family when you yourself were suffering deeply the pains of a defining relationship coming to an end. So what an incredible place to be at the beginning of a beginning and at the beginning of an ending. So to review, of the roughly 100 people present, all of whom were our witnesses, one was actively dying, one was actively addictive, and one couple was actively breaking up. Now imagine what was actively going on for the other 96 people present. And imagine, if you will, what is actively going on for the people this morning in our virtual sanctuary. Let's acknowledge that we human beings, we are rich and complicated creatures, and intentional events like weddings or a worship service can get nuanced and nourished in all sorts of ways. And on the surface, you just don't know how deep the stories go. Now, the story of our wedding ceremony was a story of a very do-it-yourself event. The bride, she made her own dress. She made my outfit as well. We designed our own rings, carving these little discs of wax and then getting it cast. We wrote our own vows. I actually had Scottish heather braided into my long ponytail. And I know it's hard to believe, but yes, I did at one time have enough hair to have a ponytail. So we also riffed off of various traditions and created a number of rituals, including what became, for me, one of the most profound rituals that I've ever been involved in. What happened was this. Right before the exchange of our vows and the exchange of our rings were put into this one-of-a-kind, very special ceramic bowl. And the bowl was passed around the entire congregation, we'll call it. And each person got to hold the bowl, and each person was invited to bless the rings with a word or with their silence. And an amazing display of creativity, of presence, and of witness. Not one word was repeated, not one. And everyone, all voices participated. People were invited to stand in silence. Everyone chose to speak. And of course, words like love and friendship, warmth and listen, cuddle. Each word a blessing. Each word entered the bowl and absorbed into the rings. And at this point, all the preparations, all the planning, all the everything just cinched into place, and something truly genuine was happening at the edge of a second-growth forest somewhere in Oregon. Everyone present was listening closely. Many were moved to tears. The bowl was being filled to the brim, one word at a time, with love and with blessings. With love and with blessings. The rings, they were practically glowing. Now, when the bowl was passed to my aunt, my only aunt, who had worked so hard and traveled so far to carry her shrinking bucket list and her long, or bucket list and her long list. Right here, right now, cancer be damned. She stood with her scarf-wrapped bald head. She gazed at me and my soon-to-be wife, and she said one word: remember. Remember. What an incredible blessing from a person fighting to stay alive. What an incredible blessing from someone who was at that moment creating an unforgettable moment. When asked at the end of her life what blessing she wanted to deliver to a young couple on the verge of their adventure of life and marriage: remember. And then the bowl was passed to an elderly artist. He was someone that I had befriended when he was in his 70s and I was in my 20s. We never had an official conversation about this, about his quote-unquote status in my life, but I considered him a mentor of mine. He was an elder who I looked to for inspiration and for guidance on how to live a creative, deep, and meaningful life. 50 years my senior, I was astonished what he had packed into his days and into his years. He had lived a rich and full life as an actor and a playwright, a painter and a poet. He spent his boyhood in Oregon, his adulthood in San Francisco. He was an atheist, a communist, a labor organizer. In the 1950s, he had been called before the House Un-American Activities Committee, the infamous HUAC from Senator McCarthy. I actually looked and found the transcript of his testimony before HUAC for the congressional record, and actually published it in a book, and it became a kind of a surrealist play. And I actually had the great good fortune of playing my mentor in this play at a bookstore in a performance. It was hilarious. His plays that he wrote have been produced by renowned theater companies. He himself had acted many, many times at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. This guy was the real deal. Capital R real, capital D deal. And when he stood with the bowl in his hands, he used his actor's voice and he used his poet's heart to say, so all could hear, a single word: Carborundum. Carborundum. Now, approximately 100 pairs of eyebrows did one of two things: furrow in confusion or raise in delight. And I did both in this really quick succession. And I'm fairly confident, just like this worship service, that the word carborundum had never been used at a wedding as in ever. I loved it. My bride and I received the world's first, perhaps only, Carborundum Blessing. Now, I have had 30 years to consider the many facets of this blessing, and here is what I've figured out to date. Carborundum, the elements that put a carborundum together, it's silicon carbide, very, very rare in its natural form on Earth, but it can be synthetically created. It is most commonly used as an industrial strength abrasive. Truth be told, that did not sound like the most romantic blessing on Earth. So I dove a little deeper. And years after receiving this blessing, I actually found this beat-up package of carborundum at an estate sale. I keep this displayed in my office ever since. Now, the chemical abbreviation of carborundum is SiC. It just so happens that SiC also spells the word sick, which in written texts indicates that the preceding word or passage is intended exactly as printed, or to indicate that it exactly reproduces the original. So in my line of work, I like the word sick very much, and I use it with some frequency to clarify my written communications. To be blessed with a tool to create clarity in communications is something that I absolutely love. Having been absorbed into the wedding ring, this wedding ring creates inside this wedding ring carborundum, and sick. Now, beyond this flight of sick fancy, the most common application for carborundum is as a very effective abrasive. It is also used in applications requiring high endurance, such as car brakes, car clutches, and ceramic plates in bulletproof vests. Bulletproof vests. Now, electronic applications include light-emitting devices, LEDs, and semiconductor devices that operate at high temperatures or high voltages. And get this, with carborundum deeply gripping my mind, I was at an art gallery in San Francisco, obviously pre-pandemic, and I saw an exhibit of the great Spanish poet Miro that featured carborundum prints. I'm going to read from one of the little placards. The carborundum printmaking process is an engraving technique requiring the use of the abrasive carborundum. It's added to the etching plate to create this granulated textured surface. Now, Miro had found that combining this new technique with other etching methods, that he could invent images that would rival any painting, thereby ennobling the art of printmaking. And so I hope you are all grooving on this, the multitudinous and resonant meanings of the Carborundum Blessing. It clarifies communication. It is an abrasive to make things smooth. It is high endurance. It emits light. It withstands high voltage. It is used in both bulletproof vests and art making. And here is the sweetest news of all, straight from the internet. While rare on Earth, silicon carbide is remarkably common in space. It is a common form of stardust found around carbon-rich stars, and examples of this stardust has been found in pristine condition in primitive meteorites. Carborundum is common stardust. It's found in meteorites. Need I say more? When you see a shooting star, a meteorite burning through our atmosphere and streaking across the night sky, you are seeing carborundum. Carborundum! And you know, I don't think that my elder mentor ever intended all this resonance with his blessing. I think that he thought it was just a good word. That was a memorable word, a unique word that stood out in high relief from the more common words being offered to the bowl. A word like poetry, that is memorable speech. He voiced a blessing, and we accepted it. We accepted it, and then we had to make this unique blessing our own. We had to make it our own. And thinking about making it your own, one of my favorite contemporary philosophers and storytellers is a man named Stephen Tobolowsky. In his book, My Adventures with God, there is a sentence in the final paragraph that I would love to share with you this morning. It goes like this, quote, "Any blessing is just an opportunity to see the world with the eyes of your better self." Wow. Any blessing is just an opportunity to see the world with the eyes of your better self. That is certainly what happened with me and the Carborundum Blessing. I was forced to go find the meaning, to search for the meaning. More than that, I was called to create the meaning. And thus the Carborundum Blessing is made of stardust. It's a gift from the heavens. Among its many qualities, it protects, it clarifies, it grinds smooth, it withstands high voltage, it emits light. And best of all, the Carborundum Blessing causes eyebrows to both furrow and rise, and sends the blessed off into the world with the eyes of their better self to make their own meaning. Repeat. To make your own meaning. And that perhaps is the magic and the mystery of the Carborundum Blessing. Once you have it, it's yours to engage the heavens, and it's yours to engage the earth. It is essentially our dynamic and inspirational fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And so to close, we offer into this sanctuary the sublime and the powerful Carborundum Blessing. Now you are invited to receive the Carborundum Blessing with an open heart, with an open mind, with open hands, any combination of those you wish, to bring in the stardust and to go forth in truth and to make meaning. Carborundaman. That's wrong. Carborundaman. Carborundaman. Have a beautiful Father's Day. Have a beautiful solstice. And go make some meaning. Our closing song this morning, Now Thank We All Our God, by the QUUF Quintet of Sarah, Al, Doug, Pat, and Jess. Once again, thank you very much, musicians. And please join me now for the chalice extinguishing words. And if you know them, you're welcome to say them at home. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These let us carry in our hearts until we're together again. Thank you. So after the service, I hope that you will join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is to be placed into a Zoom room with one of our coffee hour hosts. The time together will feature personal check-ins, also some reflection questions on the sermon topic. I hope to see you there. But before we get there, please let's turn our attention to the postlude, which is Look to the Rainbow by Stephen Preece. We'll see you there.